What's going on, everyone? It is the Derv, and today I am excited to bring to you a Banner Titan build. Yes, you heard that correctly. Banner Titan recently is now more powerful than ever, and with Act 2 on the horizon here in Heresy, we're about to see a lot more Banner Titans, I think, on the battlefield, and this one is no exception. It takes advantage of Banner Titan's strength, ability regen, very quick super regen, an overwhelming amount of power with a couple of key exotics, like I said. And honestly, this thing feels more powerful than it has in a long time. And thanks to the artifact, we're doing amazing AoE damage, champ damage, boss damage, you name it. This Titan is absolutely destroying it. So if you've been looking for a great Titan build, this one is definitely going to be up there. You can take it into virtually any activity that you might find yourself wanting to do, and know that you're going to be able to come out the other side with the enemies of the Traveler absolutely leveled to dust. So if you find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Titan lover who's been looking for a great Strand Titan and maybe they don't know about the love that Banner Titans have had over the years, this is the build for you. This is extremely powerful, extremely versatile. You will help your teammates as well as unhelp virtually any enemy that comes to your way. So I'm excited to bring this to you. Let's get on into it. We've got the Titan subclass, the Berserker. Our super Blade Fury is an excellent roaming super that recharges super quick, and when you attack, you can attack two different ways. You can suspend targets, and you could just outright attack them with your blades head on. For the abilities, you want to equip the Rally Barricade, and I'll explain why in a second. The lift movement, I prefer the strafe lift, but you can use whatever you want. Our main melee that you're going to be using all the time is going to be Frenzied Blade. I'm going to show you an additional way that you can use that as well. That additional way is due to the grapple. We are not relying on our grenade to do anything other than pull us towards a target or a group of targets and unleash a deadly melee. During and after the grapple, when you strike the target and you deal the area damage, it unravels the target, and unraveled targets unwind into a tangle, which you can then use to continue on the carnage down the battlefield. Banner of War. You cannot have a Banner Titan without the Banner of War strand aspect. Defeating a target with a melee attack finisher sword to raise a Banner of War that pulses with energy, periodically healing nearby allies and increasing melee and sword damage. Targets defeated by you and nearby allies charge the banner, increasing the speed of the pulses. So you get increased melee and sword damage as well as your allies when they are inside your area of effect. Next up is going to be Dranger's Lash. Activate your barricade ability to create a ripple in reality that travels forward along the ground, suspending and damaging the targets in line. So you activate your barricade, and you're going to see some strand matter project forward. Any targets that are caught in that blast radius are going to get suspended. That includes champions, majors. The only thing it doesn't include is going to be end bosses, which is super helpful when you're trying to get a jump on that nagging overload or unstoppable champ. Either way, this is going to be extremely helpful when you're dealing with champions anywhere in the system. First fragment on the list is going to be Thread of Warding. Pick up an Orb of Power, grants Woven Mail. -10 to resilience, so just make sure your armor can adjust for that. But essentially, you're going to get a bunch of resistance to incoming damage of all types. So you want your Woven Mail procced as often as possible. Next up is going to be Thread of Transmutation. When you have Woven Mail, weapon blows create a tangle. +10 to strength, so I'm going to take advantage of that. Tangles can unwind and do area damage when you shoot them. You can also pick them up and throw them at targets Either way, it's just another way for you to continue to deal damage and refresh your roaming banner. Next up is going to be Thread of Rebirth. Strand Weapon Final Blows have a chance to create a threadling. This is just in an effort to get as many allies involved in the game as possible. So if you can create a threadling in the midst of all the chaos and it can do some damage and help you whittle down the numbers against you guys, it's going to be a big help, and it spawns more often than you think. Last but not least, Thread of Generation. Dealing damage generates grenade energy. This is going to be pivotal because Thread of Generation and the grapple are going to work in tandem together. I want to be able to generate my grenade as fast as possible so that I can use it to launch myself at a group of targets or maybe one major target and unravel it by dealing a devastating melee blow, picking up my tangle and carrying on with the mission. For armor stats, you're going to want to focus into discipline, resilience, and strength. Your main focus is going to be your resilience so that you can get your barricade back faster, as well as being able to resist incoming damage, followed by discipline. Ideally, you want to have those at a T8 or higher with at least resilience in a T10 so you get the extra 30% buff to resisting incoming damage of all types. The strength doesn't necessarily matter as much, neither does your intellect because it is a roaming super. The recovery, you just want that above a T3, and your mobility, that doesn't really matter either, but I recommend to have that above a T3 as well. And the reason for all of this is so you can equally cycle through your grenade as well as your barricade and unleashing your melee strikes while you're using your grenade. You don't really have to worry about using your melee strikes outside of that simply because you're going to be using them more so when you proc your super, which is going to be happening extremely often. For kinetic weapon slot options, number one on the list, I recommend Rufus' Fury. If you craft this with Demolitionist and Hatchling, you can unleash threadlings, get your grenade back faster, and continue carnage at the tune of 720 rounds per minute. But there are a ton of options, and they all revolve around one of the same perks. And that is going to be Hatchling, 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 over and over and over again, with the exception being Adamantite, which I substitute Hatchling for Attrition Orbs, which is a calculated move there because you can use a weapon like that that's got Attrition Orbs as long as you have the Demolitionist perk. So that's the trade-off there. But virtually any strand weapon that you want is going to be able to proc Unraveling rounds when you pick up an Orb of Power, thanks to the artifact. So realistically, use whatever strand weapon that you want, but I recommend, number one, have one that deals with the Hatchling trait. If you don't have that, try to farm for one in any of these options you see on the screen. Get the Hatchling trait, and if you are lucky enough to have Demolitionist to pair with it, it's going to be nothing but threadlings, tangles, and an unlimited amount of grenade energy coming back to you pretty much at all times. So it'll never be lacking as long as you're dealing damage with everything equally. The focal point of this build outside of the strand aspect is going to center around Telesto. If you haven't picked up Telesto in a while, this thing is arguably more monstrous now than it's ever been. Unplanned Reprieve. Fusion projectiles attach and detonate with a delayed void blast. This thing puts out a ridiculous amount of damage, and since it is a fusion rifle and can stun unstoppable champions, it is number one on my list for things that you want to pair with Banner Titan. It also helps to deal with majors, bosses, and champs, thereby giving you another way to keep proccing your Banner of War and refreshing the pulse for you and your allies. Get the catalysts unlocked so that you can get increased damage reserves, and if you've never seen the rain of projectiles on your next direct hit with this weapon, I'm telling you, this thing is extremely fun to watch. And honestly, when I see others using it, I always kind of just stand there and watch this thing just go to work. So be the one that everyone's standing around watching doing a ridiculous amount of damage. Put on Telesto. It's well worth your exotic slot. If you don't want to run Telesto, The main point of the energy slot weapons is going to be to stun unstoppable champions. Now, if you're just running general content, I guess you can run whatever you want. It doesn't have to even be any of these options. But we're thinking of, can this be taken into an endgame successfully? And the answer is yes. Exdirus has the ability to stun unstoppable champions with the blinding explosions that are caused by the moths. And Vexcalibur is a glaive that you can use to stun unstoppable champions as well. So the Exdirus, it is arc, so you're going to have to deal with the differences in elemental, siphons or whatever else you want to do, ammo reserve mods and things like that. Or you can just put on Vexcalibur, and again, you're going to get bonus melee damage because of the Banner of Titan build that we have already. So if you were to use the glaive, all that means is you have to get a little bit more up close to those unstoppable champions, but you're still going to unleash a ridiculous amount of damage regardless. So those would be my three options, with Telesto being number one. I 100% recommend Commemoration. Commemoration with Reconstruction and Rampage. Retrofit Escapade with 4 times the charm or target lock. You can put in Pro Memoria if you just want to be able to generate more unraveling rounds, or you want to take advantage of the Reconstruction bait and switch and Dealer's Choice perks you can put on it. Or last but not least, Hammerhead with Rewind and Onslaught. Any of these 4 are going to be awesome to pair with anything in this column, and certainly will be great options for final bosses and majors and things like that, but not necessarily ad clear unless you absolutely want to. So you got a bunch of different options you can use. All of them are going to be viable no matter if you're trying to decide what to put in your kinetic, your energy, or your heavy weapon slot. But I'm trying to spec into Void so I can take advantage of the artifact, and that's what I recommend you do too, since you're going to have so many green allies on the field. Dealing additional damage, it's only going to add to the carnage. For the helmet mod, spec into whichever general mod that you need. I recommend a heavy ammo finder, and run dual siphons if you can. It will help you generate more orbs so you don't feel like you have to decide if you want to cycle between weapons or not. But if you are only going to pull out the energy and the heavy weapon for majors and bosses, you can drop the Void Siphon, put on literally anything else, Dynamo, hands-on, power preservation, or even another harmonic siphon, and you're still going to generate an obscene amount of ability energy as well as super energy and get better orbs of power because of it. Synthoceps, a staple in a lot of Titan builds in general, certainly no different here. I am taking this over the exotic class item, not only because the exotic class item does not pair with OG builds, it only pairs with Prismatic, but because Synthoceps by itself, you gain increased melee and super damage, as well as improved weapon handling and reload speed when you're surrounded. So you get all those things with the standard Synthoceps. The spirit of Synthoceps only gives you the increased melee damage when you're surrounded. It doesn't give you the super damage or weapon handling or reload speed. So it just adds to your utter ability to just destroy the battlefield. For mods, spec into whichever general armor mods that you need, as well as your artifice mod. And then I recommend heavy-handed, impact deduction, and either harmonic loader or a second impact deduction. The reason for this is we are not using our grenade to generate an orb of power at all. So you're going to substitute that out with something that can help you stay in the fight faster. So getting grenade energy back every time you cause damage with a powered melee works, or getting increased reload speed from your strand weapon that's got Demolitionist and Hatchling on is going to help you increase the carnage and damage dealt to get you your grenade back even faster. For the chest armor, whatever general mod that you want, this week's GM I recommend Void and Arc resistance, and then whatever weapons that you need for the reserve mod, spec into that. Since I'm running dual Void energy and heavy weapons, Void reserves is going to apply to both of them, which makes that even more synergistic in the build itself. For the leg armor, whatever general mod that you want is completely up to you. I recommend speccing into Insulation, Innervation, and Absolution. Insulation doesn't grace a lot of my builds, but this is because we want to be able to proc our Rally Barricade a little bit more often once we pick up those Orbs of Power. And I'm telling you, once you get used to how this thing is going to function, you're going to be using most of your abilities routinely. And once you get used to it even more, it's almost going to be cyclical with how you can go from one to the next, back to your weapons, back to your energy and heavy weapons, and then cycling through your abilities again and rinse and repeat. So Insulation is going to help you with that, as well as Innervation, as well as Absolution. I guess you could substitute Absolution for either Void or Strand Surge if you really want to, but I don't really think you're going to be missing out on it because chances are you're going to be using your super as well as your heavy as well as your energy weapon for boss damage and champ damage in general. So having a surge mod, I don't know. I mean, maybe if you're doing like a raid boss or something and you've got a couple of weaker teammates with you that don't know how to shoot, that might be worth it. But if everyone's doing their part on that, I mean, it won't really matter if you have surge mods either, unless you want to be the top dog for DPS damage anyways. So leaving it how you have, I would even run this in a raid and not be worried about if I'm going to put on a weapon surge or not. I'll do plenty even with the Banner Titan set up like this. Last but not least, the Titan Mark. Whatever general armor mod that you want. I also recommend using Font of Restoration. Now, unlike in Warlock, Font of Restoration doesn't contribute to your class ability cooldown. However, it does contribute to your ability to regenerate health. And since mine is down to a T3, picking up one Orb of Power is going to bump me up to a T7. So already I'm going to be getting a much more substantial tick back to my health, and I think that's going to help you as well. But if you aren't worried about that, let's say you've got some pretty decent armor rolls that also do complement the recovery stat, you can swap that out for a Second Reaper, which I already have on here anyways because we are using our class ability regularly. And of course, I want my grenade back as fast as possible, so generating grenade cooldown tick while using my class ability, it just goes hand in hand with how we are trying to do this build. For the Tablet of Ruin, this is how I have it set up. Unstoppable Fusion, which Telesto will bond with. Overload Machine Guns. And Piercing Sidearms, this is really just never leaves my selection pick. I can obviously swap into Final Warning. I can swap into Mikhail's Reverence, Breachlight, whatever piercing sidearm I want if I'm not confident in my ability to proc unraveling rounds. But I leave this on regardless, so just use your best judgment. Volatile Marksman for the volatile rounds when I'm laying into enemies with my void weapons. And believe it or not, Telesto can proc this as well. Even if it's not all precision hits, it just has to be final blows. And since Telesto explodes, you're going to be able to do some sick AoE damage when you're using it. Unraveling Orbs, I want to get my unraveling rounds going. I want to be able to just absolutely obliterate the screen with everything green that I can possibly make, and anything that I miss, I can use my Telesto and my machine gun. Hold the Line for the increased reload speed and stability, as well as final blows healing me. King's Vestige, defeating powerful Taken loads your weapon with Taken energy. This one I've only got because I do run a lot of Nether activities, as well as this week's Nightfall and GM are very Taken heavy. So you take advantage of this perk relatively often. But if you didn't want, you could always switch this out for Disruptor Spike. Improves the effects of Exhaust and Sever. You will be severing targets a ton with your Banner Titan, so just something to think about as well. Horde Shuttle for the unraveling targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a threadling. Rapidly applying this is Maligned Harvest. Rapidly applying Volatile causes your next instance of void weapon damage to create a weakening burst. This will stack on top of Telesto. And then Dreadful Finisher. Titans are known for beating champs into the ground, and I use my finisher as often on a champ as I possibly can, so this just makes sense to give my Telesto more special ammo. This final comm is going to be up to you. I'm going to tell you how I've got it, and I'm going to tell you how you can change it if you want. First up is going to be heavy ordnance regeneration, dealing sustained damage to targets with a heavy machine gun or rocket launcher. You get damage resistance, increased grenade and melee regen for a short duration. I am using a machine gun. It's what I recommend you using in the heavy slot, so this is a no-brainer. Void Flux is what I have. Defeating weakened targets with a void weapon applies volatile to nearby targets. Powerful targets increase the radius of the explosion. This one is a calculated one because I'm going to be defeating weakened targets on a regular basis thanks to the other two void options that I have selected as well. However, you could make the argument to put on particle reconstruction for Telesto, dealing sustained damage with fusion rifles, partially refills the magazine from reserves, grants them bonus damage for short duration against that target. So you just keep unloading Telesto into the boss, and particle reconstruction will proc. Now, you don't have unlimited ammo with Telesto, so this is going to be calculated. Do you really want to keep this going for 10, 15, 20 seconds? You might not have any ammo left over if there are still champs waiting to spawn in your GM or regular Nightfall. And then finally, realistically, you could select any of these. You can get a stack of bolt charge if you stun a champ, and you're going to be able to stun champs with this. But you can also, defeating exhausters, sever targets with weapons that match your super element, grant super energy. If you want additional super energy, you can put this on as well. But I think your main two that you can choose, main three that you can choose two of is going to be heavy ordnance regeneration, void flux, and particle reconstruction. When I ran my last Nightfall, I wasn't really hurting for the additional damage from Telesto, mainly because I was using it intermittently with my heavy. Because of the heavy choice that I have, it's extremely easy to control, so I can proc volatile as often as I want practically, because I have a weapon that's so easy to control. But you're going to have to decide based on what you like doing. You may find that particle reconstruction might even work better for you, and honestly, you wouldn't be wrong. It's a great perk regardless. I just like kind of leaning on my machine guns a little bit more than Telesto, even though I know Telesto is absolutely ridiculous. So that is the build. There's probably going to be a little bit of debate on if you can truly call this a Banner Titan. The problem with this season so far is we don't have Act 2 and we don't have Act 3 perks. But the word on the street is Strand is going to get a little bit of extra love, and we might be getting an additional weapon that can stun champs, which is going to change how some people outfit their character. Now, is it going to fundamentally change how everyone does their builds? I kind of doubt it, but in the event that some of the perks that people think we're going to be getting on the artifact actually drop, this build is going to get even more ridiculous with more strand buffs that you can take advantage of on top of the ones that you have right now. This Strand Titan is going to generate a ton of tangles, a ton of threadlings. It's going to give you ridiculous grenade energy back, which means you're going to be able to power melee grapple all over the battlefield. And oh, by the way, if you do find yourself pinned down you've got one of the best burst DPS weapons in the game in Telesto to help you out of the jam, as well as stunning champs with it. And then for the overloads that don't ever seem to quit, you can put on any legendary machine gun and stun them with relative ease because it's a heavy ammo weapon. So what's there not to love about an OG Banner Titan? This thing is back and stronger than ever, and because there's finally some strand love in the artifact, this Banner Titan just, not that it didn't wreck before, but it wrecks more now than probably it has since Lightfall, maybe. How long ago was that? Lightfall seems like eons ago compared to realizing that we're almost coming up on a year anniversary of the release of the final shape here in a few months. So yeah, I'm excited to use this, and I've been using this. It's hard for me to put Titan down in general this season, but Banner Titan feels just so ridiculously strong, even in a non-strand surge activity, that I think once we get the additional artifact perks released for Act 2, people are going to be speccing more and more into Strand. And this is an excellent build that's been shelved for a long time because people haven't been able to take advantage of any artifact perks for it. And now we can, have some ridiculous combinations for damage, DPS, area DPS, crowd control, area control, champ control. I mean, if you've never messed with a Banner of War Titan, this is your sign. This thing is also ridiculous in a lost sector. You know, get yourself into a expert or master lost sector with this thing. It could still hang. You just make sure you have your resistances modded. Make sure you have your champs covered. You know, if it's not unstoppable and overload. And go ahead and go in there, proc your first kill, and just keep on killing and keep that banner pumping health and energy regeneration back into you. I mean, there really is not much to hate about a Banner Titan, and that's why it was so powerful and popular for a long time. But since the release of the final shape, and there hasn't been a lot of Strand love as of late, people have shelved these to put on, you know, other elemental Titans, which, I mean, I can't fault them for that. But going back to this just feels so natural for someone who got into Titan through Strand in general. So I think you're really going to like this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take us into the moon just for a quick little demonstration. You saw the opening video where I was running Nightfall, and even with it not being a surge Nightfall, I was still doing a ridiculous amount of damage. You saw the scorecard at the end of the intro video, so you know this thing can keep up with the best of them. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of things that you can see in a little bit slower of an environment when you're not really running for your life. If you do find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Titan lover out there who's been waiting for the opportunity to put their Banner Titan back into rotation, or maybe even create one based on the artifact and some of the advantages you can have by running Strand and Void together in one subclass, please share this video with them or send them my way. My goal is to help as many people as possible. And as always, I want to thank you guys for the positive vibes and good support you've given me over the years so far. And we just got into March, a couple of days ago. And already I'm just seeing everyone's love kind of pouring in over, you know, the different builds and walking people through. So, but if you guys have ideas, you guys want some specific builds, or you guys are looking for different elements that maybe aren't on the artifact, which I have obviously been missing some of those as well, feel free to leave me a comment or some feedback or join the Discord. Remember, I'll have a Discord link and a dim link for this in the description of the video, as well as chapters. But I just want to thank you guys for the support. My goal is to help as many people as possible, like always. So like I said, if anything resonated with you or you did find anything helpful, liking and subscribing helps put me on the map into the hands of someone who maybe is just looking for a little bit of extra idea of what to do with maybe one of their favorite characters. And that's what it's all about, is being able to help people in this game. So, all right, we're going to get on into the moon. Here we go. So I just spawned in. I'm going to get things started by unraveling this easy nightmare, and you're going to see just how quickly ability generation is going to be. You can see it looks like I'm by myself. So here, let's pull out Telesto, and boom, look at that. I mean, that health bar just dipped for this nightmare. And these nightmares, I mean, if you're dumping primary ammo into them, it's not like they're easy to kill. So here we're going to pop our barricade, and there you go. That's everyone popped up, suspended in the air, and we've got our ability regeneration just in full swing. You can stand behind your barricade. You can see I've already got my super, and I mean, again, it's one of the most satisfying supers to use, simply because you can roam around the battlefield and viciously just stomp into, you know, whatever enemy that you are trying to go after. And you can see, I understand this is the beginning of the altars rotation, so to speak, but we didn't have any problems keeping up with the activity, getting through the nightmares. You can see I've got Banner of War X4, which means I'm just getting a ridiculous amount of resistance to any incoming damage. And the more ad dense population that you are facing, the better. So realistically, it's going to depend on what you're playing, but either way, you cannot go wrong with a Banner Titan. So we're going to start it all over again. Boom, there we go. Banner is procced. I've got my Telesto. I'm going to be procking. You can see I've got, you know, this nightmare is basically almost completely gone. And when you glow like that, you get the health regen as well as your grenade and melee regeneration as well. So you can see with Syntheseps, your melee is extremely strong. You can see I have been playing relatively aggressive, but nothing beyond what, you know, anybody else is going to be playing. And I've had 2 supers already in the manner of, what, 2 minutes, 3 minutes? So that is the build. This is a very, very useful build. You can use this in a variety of activities, and you can practically become indestructible depending on your play style and how you mod your character. But the way that I have it modded now is honestly probably the strongest you can make it. And you can see you're going to be able to proc volatile rounds. You're going to be able to stun champs with this. All good things. So again, if you did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Titan lover out there, or you've been looking for a sign to maybe create a Titan of your own, let this be your sign. I'm telling you, it is well worth the effort and the energy and the resources to get a good Banner Titan, especially for this season. It's only going to get better as more Strand Love gets released in the artifact. So thank you guys for checking out the video. Thank you guys for the good vibes so far in 2025. Hopefully this build makes somebody happy out there, because I have been missing my Banner Titan for a while now, and I am happy to say with the artifact options you can use, it is back and stronger than ever. So I will see you guys next time. Leave me some feedback, get at me on my Discord, or if there's any builds out there that you want to see me try to dive into with any elements that maybe aren't considered meta right now, let me know. I'll do what I can to help you guys out. Take care now.